programming is supported by WITF members and by PNC.
PNC is proud to support PBS Kids as part of the PNC Grow Up Great initiative, a program dedicated to helping children prepare to learn in school. Together, we're making sure that kids don't just grow up, but grow up great.
Watch Sesame Street weekdays at 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. on WITF.
You're watching PBS Kids on WITF-TV in Harrisburg and all of Central PA.
Thomas and friends, making tracks to great destinations.
Because nothing inspires the imagination quite like the magic of train travel, Amtrak is proud to support Thomas and Friends on PBS. You can never have too many friendly faces out on the rails.
The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams, and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine, and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track?
It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the island of Sodor. Today, on the island of Sodor, we find out what happens when Percy discovers the track is wobbly. And we find out who will collect the circus from Brendam Docks. But first, Gordon is making some very strange noises. Gordon is big and blue, and the fastest engine on all of Sodor. He loves pulling the express. Gordon thinks it makes him the most important engine on the island. Gordon beamed with pride. Gordon spent the next day having his pistons polished, his axles greased, and his wheels well oiled. At last, he didn't make any more funny noises. Gordon was as good as new, and he felt even better. Thomas and Emily have important jobs to do. Thomas needs to take some coal to Brendam Docks, and Emily has to go to Tidmouth Sheds. Emily is puffing to Tidmouth Sheds, but a tree has fallen across the line. Emily has to go back. Thomas is puffing to Brendam Docks, but the track is closed for repair. Thomas has to go back. Thomas and Emily have to use the same track, but they meet in the middle. What can Thomas and Emily do? Thomas is puffing into the siding. Now they can share the track. Emily can get to Tidmouth Sheds, and Thomas can get to Brendam Docks. Sharing the track was a good idea. Well done, Thomas. And well done, Emily. Thomas is puffing through the countryside. He is on his way to Knapford Yard. But Thomas stops puffing. He has run out of coal. Now what is Thomas going to do? Here comes Edward. I wonder if he can help. Edward asked his fireman to give Thomas some of his coal. Edward is sharing his coal with Thomas. Now they both have some coal. And Thomas can puff all the way to Knapford Yard. Edward is chuffing cheerfully through the countryside. But what's this? Edward has to stop. He has run out of water. But here comes Henry. Henry has lots of water. Henry shares his water with Edward. Now they both have some water. And Edward can finish his journey. Henry is puffing into the yard. He is ready to collect a special delivery. But there are too many freight cars for Henry to pull. Thomas and Edward only have a few freight cars. Henry shares his freight cars with Thomas and Edward. Thomas, Edward, and Henry all share. It makes them happy and gets the job done. At harvest time, the air is filled with the smell of fresh fruit and vegetables. The engines happily deliver their loads to market. But one day, mist and rain swirled down Toby's line. Percy was delivering a load of fresh tomatoes. Suddenly, he felt a big bump. "Bust my buffers!" Percy cried. "What was that?" Percy? It was dawn before the track was cleared. Then Percy and Thomas made their way back home. "Thomas is here!" whistled Percy. "Percy saved the day," said Thomas. Agreed the bull. "I'm sorry, Percy," said Sir Topham Hatt. "We must do a better job of listening to you in the future." Percy was pleased. Sir Topham Hatt has sent Percy and Thomas to collect some freight cars. How many freight cars are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 freight cars. How many freight cars should Thomas and Percy each pull? Thomas takes 5 freight cars. That only leaves 1 freight car for Percy. Percy wants to take the same number of freight cars as Thomas. How many freight cars should Percy take? Percy takes 4 freight cars. Now Thomas only has 2 freight cars. They still haven't got the same number of freight cars. How many freight cars should they each take? Thomas takes 3 freight cars. How many does Percy have? 1, 2, 3 freight cars. The same number as Thomas. They have 3 freight cars each. Well done, Percy and Thomas. It was a glorious day on the island of Sodor. Villagers, children, even Sir Topham Hatt was excited. The circus was coming. The engines were thrilled. They loved the circus too. Percy loved the horses. James loved the clowns. Children gathered on the bridges. They were waiting to see the circus pass by. Thomas became more and more excited. Everyone wanted to collect the circus from Brendam Docks. Later, the friends watched as the big tent was put up. "Thank you for helping me," puffed Thomas. "Sharing your work makes things much easier. But sharing the fun is the best fun of all." And everyone agreed.
He's the cheeky one.
James.
His fame, but lots of fun.
Percy.
Pulls the mail on time.
Gordon.
Thunders down the line.
Emily.
Really knows her stuff.
Henry.
Toots and huffs and puffs.
Edward.
Wants to help and share.
Toby. Well, let's say he's square. They're two, they're four, they're six, they're eight. Shunting trucks and hauling freight. Red and green and brown and blue. They're the really useful crew. All with different roles to play. Round timber sheds or far away. Down the hills and round the bends. Thomas and his friends. They're two, they're four, they're six, they're eight. Shunting trucks and hauling freight. Red and green and brown and blue. They're the really useful crew. All with different roles to play. Round timber sheds or far away. Down the hills and round the bends. Thomas and his friends.
Because nothing inspires the imagination quite like the magic of train travel, Amtrak is proud to support Thomas and Friends on PBS. You can never have too many friendly faces out on the rails.
PBS Kids.
Let your imagination soar on WITF-TV Harrisburg.